I really dislike it when people claim that a matchup is unwinnable. I know a lot of the time they're exaggerating and they don't mean it literally, but it's still important to avoid doing. One thing you need to understand is what causes people to say that. It's typically going to stem from frustration and or laziness. You really want to avoid it being from laziness. The problem with this is it's going to stifle your willingness to continue to optimize what you think is already good. It's also going to limit your creativity on different options that you could try, such as different runes, different builds, different way to play the game. You also won't be willing to see it from the other party's perspective and see what it's like to play it from their matchup and what parts could go wrong even if you think it's super easy for them. Every matchup has a win condition, regardless of the role or champion that you play. This isn't to say that certain matchups aren't difficult though. Of course, every champion in the game has matchups they don't like, and every role. However, a bad matchup isn't a good enough reason to dodge a game. There's a lot that can be learned by trying to problem solve a really difficult matchup. You can do this through 1v1s, or if it's a really common matchup, maybe just playing against it a bunch in solo queue. You could also watch VODs of other people playing against the champion, or maybe even talk to other people that you know play against the champion or do better against that champion than you do and see their perspective. Try to think about what your champion wants versus what the opposing champion wants. Should you take short trades, long trades? Does the opposing champion have particular weaknesses like high mana costs? Does your champion have no mana costs? Which champion is better in team fights? Which is going to be better in the side lane in a 1v1? Which champion has higher mobility? Maybe you could try leveling your abilities in a different way to make the laning phase a little bit easier. You don't need to play every matchup the same way. Of course, if you play every matchup the same way, some are going to be incredibly difficult because the way you're playing isn't going to work for that particular matchup. However, if you remain diligent and disciplined, you should be able to find a way, even if it's just a small window, to get an advantage on your opponent. It may not be immediate, but it will appear. Perhaps it's from a rotation into the river where you can help your jungler win a 2v2. You also have to consider that winning a lane is going to be different depending on the matchup. Some matchups, it's perfectly okay to be down 10 CS and you'd actually be winning because of your value later, while others you need to win harder in order to make it even. Perhaps when you go through your VOD, you see some roam opportunities that you missed that you could have taken because your opponent didn't have as much mobility as you did, or they were stuck under the turret and they had to catch the wave. This applies to the jungle as well though. If you keep getting invaded, then maybe you need to look into what you could do to counteract that invade. Maybe you need to path a different way, or do your camps in a different order to throw off your opponent. If you know for sure that it's going to happen, you could also ping your teammates to rotate if that's possible with their given matchup and wave state. You don't always have to directly 1v1 your opponent to the death in order to get an advantage. And always remember that neither you nor your opponent are perfect. There's always going to be windows for both of you to look for something.